们这一代设计师，他是要干嘛？给你惯常的、庸常的生活里制造一些新的可能性。说的再直白一点，就是给你制造有趣嘛，就是制造一个有趣嘛，在一个庸常的状态下制造有趣。为我们的整个的这个视觉环境，它带来了一定的就是审美上的一些突破。好的设计，有趣的设计，然后对于这个世界有补充的。我相信这世界一定要是多姿多彩的世界。
The process of designing typefaces remained a mystery to me until I got my hands on a Macintosh computer in 1984. While it was a relatively crude tool back then, it opened up uncharted territory where I felt very free to experiment and explore. Bitmap fonts were the perfect place for me to start learning about type design because I love the building block approach. From then on, my experience and skill with ever more sophisticated typeface designs evolved along with the Macintosh's ability to produce more complex font programs. I created the majority of my type designs during a time of great technological change in the graphic design field, which was the core impetus. I search out a problem that needs to be addressed or a unique result that a production method can yield. After all, design is about creating something new each time we approach a problem.
I never use this term, form follows function. Ich finde, Dinge zu verbessern, besser als ständig irgendwo gewaltsam was Neues aufzubauen, was oft dann gar nicht neu ist, sondern formalistisch aufgesetzt wird. Wenn ich mit Äußerem anfange, deshalb vorzuge ich den Begriff Re-Engineering. Ich muss von innen anfangen. We have enough things. We can improve some things, but it's not spectacular. You know, to improve a television or a computer, to make it more self-explanatory, to make it more usable. It's always a very important thing, but it's not a spectacular thing. And the media have to learn a little bit that not the spectacular things are the important things. The unspectacular things are the important things, especially in the future.
And we started chatting, and he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm an industrial designer, product design, really." He still didn't kind of get it. So I said, "Well, see that stuff in that magazine? We design things like that." "So what are you working on now?" And I said, "I'm working on a garbage can." And the guy laughed for the next hour of the flight. And at that moment, I thought, what am I doing? That's what I'm doing. I'm designing these really banal things. These objects around us, people don't even think are designed. You know, they just fell from the sky. Yet there's people, a lot of work behind all this, you know. A lot of times I find I'm more creative the more criteria I have. It's like pushing me and pushing me. It's pushing me to really challenge myself and really do something. So I'm kind of like, in a sense, the impetus, or how can I say, a provocateur to get people to think about new space, which I realize is what I try to do in my objects too in product design. It's to make people feel alive and feel very, very happy and almost like aware, phenomenologically, like aware that they exist.
In my school time, I began collecting metal objects from the street. I started making prints from my collection. I only had money for red and blue ink. I put yellow plastic over the print and suddenly I had more colors. All because I was limited and looking for a solution. I find it impressive that with 3 primary colors, you can make all the colors of the world. When you put one color on top of the other, you always get a surprise. For me, it's still a mystery that when you combine blue and yellow, you get green, that 1 and 1 is 3. I believe curiosity is an important guide. I'm not trying to make my work perfect. I'm trying to discover something new. You should always do the things you think you should do, however terrible the results.
我认为所有的复杂都是错误的，都是不应该存在的。这个世界应该由非常多的简单的东西组成的。这个是一种 friendly， 这是 love， 而 happy， 而 love 才是人最需要的东西。所以一定要把复杂的东西变简单。简单的东西也是错误的，因为它太简单了，它不能给你 emotion。我们需要感受，为什么？因为我们是人，在简单的东西里面，尽可能的给它更高级的某种享受，给我们足够的 energy。才是我们要做的。所以是我会用一辈子去做的一件事情。
My name is Giorgia Lupi. I'm a designer and partner at Pentagram, and I use data as my favorite material and tool to communicate. Data might feel intimidating for many people, but if we think about it, what is data? Data is nothing more than an abstraction of our reality. A lens, a tool that we can use to filter our reality one subject at a time. Finding a visual vocabulary for data is really assigning shapes, colors, sizes. So it might seem this very creative process, which it is, but it's also a pretty analytical one. I would invite everybody at least once to try a little personal data collection. Think about a couple of things that you're curious about that usually you wouldn't stop and pay attention to. To humanize data is ultimately to connect numbers to what they stand for, which are our imperfect and messy lives.
No one culture is a monolith. Like, there's so many nuances and layers and depth within each culture, right? And so I think for me, it's just trying to be as authentic and genuine as I possibly can with that project that I'm doing. Obviously, some people are going to disagree with the outcome. Some people will agree. You know, there's always going to be room for opinion. But at the end of the day, you're human, you're doing the best that you can. When you have the experience, it is a genuine experience, right? You have that lived experience that you can bring to the table. And I think the tricky part is figuring out a way to do it that resonates with other people outside of that culture, that brings them in, that shares this story, that makes them want to discover the culture. And that's kind of what I strive towards, like making other people excited about it, to learn more about it, and bringing them into the storytelling.
Swiss typography was becoming very boring, very clean and clear and very functional, but not more. I saw that there's new possibilities. You cannot categorize my work and say this is a typical 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Every piece of my work is done not over computer, it's all done conventional. You do these things by hand with your heart. 1 liter of wine and then you start, then you get ideas. I'm a farmer, not from a big city. I'm a very simple person. I'm a designer, that's all.
Ich habe meine öffentliche Plakaterweckung in Polen erlebt. Und zwar 1968, als ich eine Einladung von dem polnischen Kulturminister bekam, zur Biennale nach Warschau zu kommen, um einen Preis entgegenzunehmen. Also so habe ich lauter merkwürdige Dinge auch über mein Plakat erlebt, über meine Plakate. Aber meine Plakate sind in erster Linie eine Feststellung, dass unsere Umgebung eigentlich das Material ist, das die Bilder liefert und aus denen auch Plakate gemacht werden können. Dankeschön.
私は、過去と現在という、非常に抽象的な、問題に、関わってみたいと思います。今回我々が何を後に残せるか伝えられるかということが非常に大きな問題であって、それこそ我々が考えなきゃいけない問題だと思います。やっぱり文化を押し付けるだけではダメだと。世界につながるテーマをどこに見つけていくかと。それが後の社会あるいは後の世界にどのように継続していくか。でこれを見つけていく。世界とつながる我々の文化というものは何であるかということを考えていただきたいというふうに思います。その上で感動を共有したいと思います。以上、ありがとうございました。
What's been your favorite project in your career so far?
My philosophy. I made exhibitions and advertisement for a tobacco firm, Durmak. When I read the first time in the newspaper about the danger of cancer by smoking, I said my client immediately, it's the last time that I am working for you, because it makes no sense for me as a citizen to make propaganda for a dangerous product. If you want to be an informative and communicative designer, you have to use the typography as a medium for communication. We have too much artists as graphic designer, and we have too few graphic designers with philosophy.
starting to draw type and starting to think about the role that type played in every visual system, but also in every encounter for the viewer, its components and its use as a data storage medium, as a social gestalt for creating meaning. How works are described, articulated, received by their viewer as language. The space in which I think I try and make the work operate as that terrain. The tools I use to do it are sensational, are experiential, are material. And that by creating the type, I was able to craft the voice of the data and create a cultural context for it, create a space in which it may unveil itself to the viewer as unusual. Everything starts at a core, and I think for me, I understand that the core of my work is language.
日本っていうのはね、デザインにすごい恵まれた才能を持った民族だと思うんですよ。最初にああいう緻密な抽象をやり、それから写真と合わせて、その時はコンピューターがないわけですね、まだ。コンピューター、パソコンができて、そういうこともできるようになった。でも、僕は思うのはですね、パソコンはやっぱりちょっと正確すぎるっていう思うんですよね。やっぱりわずかの手でどんなに正確に書いても必ず来るんですよね。
My name is Kenya. I'm an educator, I'm a researcher, and a freelance graphic designer, currently working across multiple disciplines in industry and also in education. My model, if you still recall the name, is called Neo Bridge. I start to think, how can form-making be the journey that depends the understanding of tool and medium, but it goes beyond sort of linguistic taxonomy and the solidity of retelling or translation. And the concept of form bridging becomes sort of the foundation of my pedagogical model, with an aim to break the primacy and dominancy of both artist and artwork by seeing the importance of relationship and relative forces as a method to break through the limitations of a narrative into a more sort of reflective space. I started to let the participant to think about the possibilities of graphic design. It can be really pushed forward to challenge the conventional idea of what design can be, to take more risks and also to be more experimental.
I start from very small emotions, small ideas, and then letting it grow into furniture, into interiors, into buildings, and hopefully into cities and things like that. It's about the story behind the object rather than the object itself. And when I try to have my objects to talk by itself, it's better that it's simple. I want the message to be very simple. But sometimes when you make it too minimal, sometimes like when you see Japanese designers, sometimes it becomes too minimal and it gets a little bit too cold. I like to have my designs to be very friendly.
与大众保持适当的距离，就想走自己想走的该走。 但不会因为说这些模仿者本身就调侃自己不行。他就是台湾的著名设计师黄志宏。黄志宏他其实我觉得他最强的是他对文字的敏感度，就很平凡的文字，他可以把它转成一个就是很强的一个艺术性的东西，我觉得很少人可以这样。其实认识他就很庆幸，还好他没有来做动画。如果他来做动画，我应该也会被他干掉。
To really understand data and their true potential, sometimes we actually have to forget about them and see through them instead. Because data are always just a tool we use to represent reality. They're always just a placeholder for something else, but they are never the real thing. In an effort to simplify the message and draw a beautiful, inevitable red and blue map, we somehow forgot that there were stories of human beings behind these numbers. Because we failed to include the right amount of context to represent reality, a nuanced, complicated, and intricate reality. To make data faithfully representative of our human nature, and to make sure they will not mislead us anymore, we need to start designing ways to include empathy, imperfection, and human qualities in how we collect, process, analyze, and display them. I do see a place where ultimately, instead of using data only to become more efficient, we will all use data to become more humane.
Reproduction of colors are based on the 3 primary colors that you can make with the 3 primary colors, all the colors of the world. I'm Karel Martens, a designer based in Amsterdam. I would go out once a week or twice and find these metal shapes. I have a bunch of them. I work with it and print with it using a bookbinding press for monoprints. I always like to print on things that have a past. And on top of that, when discovering what happens when you put one color on top of the other, you get a surprise. You can never tell exactly what happens. So you have a combination of yellow, blue, green, yellow, green, orange, yellow, and red, yellow. Voila, you have red, violet. What design is for me? It's not different from normal life.
The beauty of it was that because I never planned to be a designer, and not, even like 3 or 4 years into Designers Republic, it was still like, well, you'll get found out eventually, and I'll do something else.
So I suppose I'm a designer. I think like a designer, but I also, it's about ideas and things. And so for me, the design element is only there to better communicate the idea, really. Whether it's a record sleeve, or whether it's work for Coca-Cola, or whether it's or Audi. Nothing exists as an island, and everything exists in context. And if you're doing something that looks of the future, you need to imagine what the world would look like. How would communication be, like 100 years in the future?